Hello people, welcome back to another episode of Stoner, Frank and Free here in New Viso, coming to you from Leipzig, Germany. And today I have another subject that is coming from Germany, some stuff that you might not have heard about, but even most people in Germany have not heard about it, because a lot of it is new. And what we're going to focus today on is archaeology in Germany. I know, when we speak of archaeology, I mean, Germany is probably not the number one country that comes into your mind. I mean, there's so many interesting places on Earth for people who are interested in archaeology, so as I am. And I was traveling a lot on this Earth, and I was visiting many of these places, you know, in Central America or in Asia or whatever, wherever in the world. Wherever I was always, I was traveling a lot, and I was always interested in sites of cultural heritage, of archaeology, of a certain historian value. So I run through the world with open eyes, and I've seen many marvelous places. But it's such an interesting phenomena, you know. You seem to know the world, but you don't know your own country. And in archaeology, it's the same. I mean, Germany is a small country, coming from a small continent. Europe is a small continent. Yeah, the landmass of Europe is little compared to any other landmass on the Earth. I mean, we come from a small continent, but though small, it's quite amazing that we have some archaeological finds here that are of, and this is no over hesitation, that are of worldwide significance. We've got some really some precious finds here. And I already told you about the most likely, the most valuable find. I told you already about the Nebra sky disk, which is an amazing stuff, but we made an own episode out of it. So I will not speak about this today. But about archaeology. And it's interesting, even most people in Germany or in Europe are not aware of these new scientific developments that we have in archaeology, that we have made in the last, let's say, 25 years. Many of the stuff that I present you today is just recently, has been discovered recently, or it has been rediscovered, because some of the stuff is already old, but and now we get it into a bigger context. Or some of these stuff were re-examined again, and so a lot of this is modern input. I can tell you directly, because in the early 90s I was a student at university, and I was a student also of archaeology. That was one of my fields. And I remember when I was in university, none of that stuff did really play a role. So this is interesting stuff coming from Germany, and I hope you like what we present you. Now, the first few findings that I will show you, they all come from a region in the southwest of Germany, which is called the Schwäbische Alb, the Swabian Alp. It's a hilly region, and with a very specific landscape. Actually, it's a karst landscape, and that means that there's a lot of hollow spaces under the earth, a lot of caves and stuff like that. Just in geological terms, very interesting region. You know, it's a little bit higher than, it's not the lowlands. It's hilly lands, and it's got an own culture, so to say, and also on geological terms, very interesting. There's under the earth rivers and strange things going on. A really interesting place, the Swabian Alp. If you ever make it to Europe, to Germany, plan a stop over there. This is really nice to see. Actually, there's not many places I can say, because I've been there just last summer. I've been there, first time in my life having a look on my own. And it's such a small region, but you know, you've got everything there. You've got culture, interesting cultural stuff, and some of it we'll talk about today. You've got very nice, beautiful nature, and also geologics. So if you're interested in earth history and stuff, it's a very interesting place, the Swabian Alp. And so in these caves that we have there on the Swabian Alp, there were made some amazing archaeological finds. And the first one that I'm going to show you comes from the Vogelherdhöhle. Yes, and in the Vogelherdhöhle, they found figurines, small figurines, maybe not bigger like this, of different animals. And for example, for example, this one that we have here. This is a mammoth, obviously, and it's made out of mammoth bone, which already shows that it's got quite an age. And all these findings that come from these caves, they are dated in the same time. They are dated by geological means. I tell you, this is geological interesting country there, and you have different layers, and all these findings, they come out of a geological time they call the aurignation. It's a French term, or aurignation, probably you will find it in the books, aurignation. And this level, this stratigraphic level, is dated at around 35,000 to 40,000 years old. So all the stuff that we see now comes from this aurignation, and it's all between 35,000 and 40,000 years old. Now this is old, very old in human history, in human terms. And as a matter of fact, these figurines that we find in the Vogelherdhöhle, they are the oldest pieces of art that you have worldwide. This is true. Nowhere in the world you find artifacts, art like this, figural art, that is that old. 35,000 to 40,000 years. Now this is amazing, yeah? And look at it. I mean, this is not primitive, yeah? This is fine work. This is good artwork. I mean, the proportions of the animal are exactly right, and also details. I mean, if you just look at the front leg, you can even see that the foot is taking another shape. You know, it's like when you watch nowadays an elephant walk. You see the softness of the foot. You know, this feeling you can already see here, and of course, if you get the figurine from different points of views, you can discover much more details, and they are beautiful. This is art, you know, and it's the eldest art worldwide. Now, ain't that interesting? In the same cave, they found another one. This one here, a little wild horse from that time. Also beautiful, you know. Proportions are fine. You know, this is art. This is not children doing something, because art is also, it has to do that you have. The first thing that you have to do before you create a beautiful artifact is you have to watch exactly. You have to look. You have to watch exactly the subject, you know, and check out the proportions, check out the details, check out you have to compose a picture, you know. This is a creative project. This is not something that you just do in 5 minutes. Yeah. This is art. It's beautiful made. And this is 40,000 years old. Now that's quite amazing. Yeah? Now there's quite a few of these figurines. That's not the only two, but we're gonna go to the next cave, also in the Swabian Alp, and this one is called the Hohle Fels. Hohle Fels, also interesting name already. Hohle Fels would translate into English like a hollow rock cave. So already the places tell you, whoa, hollow stuff there. So now we go to the Hohle Fels, and we stay in the same geological level. So the artifacts are of the same time. So we stay in Aurignacien. Still, the stuff is 35,000, 40,000 years old. And what we found what was found in the Hohle Fels is this here, and this is. Oh no, sorry, I've got another one. That's one more figurine of the Vogelherd, which is also interesting. I put this one in because we cannot really say what it is, but it seems to have already. Is it a human structure already? Who knows? But so it's not only animal figurines, but it's also already human beings, you might say, and also just another fine piece of art of this Aurignacien. But now we go to the next cave, to the Hohle Fels, to the hollow rock, and there we have this here. And these are the eldest music instruments that were ever found on Earth. The eldest music instruments. That's amazing. And these are flutes. And we're talking about more than one flute. I guess it was quite a few that were found there. And flutes. So it was not only one singular found, but I say this because it proves it was a day-to-day object, flute. These people had music in their life. And these flutes, they were made of the bones of the griffin vulture. I had to look that one up. Griffin vulture, I have to look that one up. Which is an ancient bird, yeah, and which also shows this is coming out of that's a long time ago. Because I know many people are skeptical with these dates. Can we really know that it's 40,000 years? Well, not exactly. But that's why we're saying it's 35 to 40,000. And of course, this entire chronology, this system of dating, of course, this is difficult. And I'm skeptical on many parts of history and chronology, and of course also here. But what we know is that this stuff is old. Because of you cannot say, oh, this is all only fake, these datings. No, first thing, these datings, they come all from universities. These artifacts that I present you here, these are not artifacts by robbery, diggers that at nighttime they excavate something and sell it directly. This is not like that. This is all coming from universities. This is a new generation of archaeologists that present their stuff, and the datings, of course, there's different means of how to date this old stuff. There's the C40 and stuff, but in those cases, what we talk about is the geological dating. It's this level of Aurignacian, and in the Swabian Alp, at some places you can see it, that there's layer on layer on layer on earth, and it goes high up. And if you find stuff from very deep down, and that sounds sensible, I mean, or reasonable, that the stuff that is very deep is older than the stuff you find on top. So even if the whole chronology might be questionable at many points, but what we can say that in relation, we can kind of create a timeline. We can say this stuff is older than this stuff is older than this stuff, okay? And what we can be sure about is that what we find here, these Aurignacian founds, they are very old. This is much older than anything else. It's really, I'm not joking, but there's nothing comparable to this from the age. We're talking about 40,000-year-old flutes. And these flutes, some people, of course, in practical archaeology, they constructed these flutes and tried to play them, and like nowadays. And what can you say? It's all harmony. It's got 7 tones. You can play melodies with it. This is our music. 40,000 years old. Now, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, hey, Frank, where do you think is the oldest music instruments in the world? And I like this stuff, I'm a musician myself, and I've got a big love to music and also to this old stuff, so bring this together. Of course, I was always thinking about that, and I would say, yeah, we know that in Africa we've got some old stuff, like some mouth harps, I guess some archaeological finds, but this is not near to this age. That we're talking about maybe 2,000, 3,000 years. Or I would have also mentioned the didgeridoos, the traditional instrument of the Australian Aborigines, which is also an amazing instrument, and I love it, I love this didgeridoo connection. And I would have said, well, hey, this is maybe one of the eldest instruments of the world. That's what they always say. But if you look it up, I guess the oldest hint on an instrument like that is also 2, maximum 3,000 years old. There's some paintings in Australia. That's it. Nothing older. Okay, of course, that does not mean that the painting proves that it is not older. Maybe it's older. We don't know how old Aborigine culture is. We don't know how long they are playing didgeridoos. But, I mean, in Australia we talk about 3,000 years old, and here we talk about 40,000 years old. I mean, this is really, we're pushing back the timeline on an amazing scale. Now, this is music is really important. We have art, we have music. Now let's see what we have next. The next thing is maybe also one of the very important things. It comes from the same cave, from the Hohlefels, and it's this one here. And this is called the Venus from Hohlefels. Venus, because we have in archaeology a tradition. I mean, there's many founds of female statues. that most of the time we just say it's goddess, it's a female goddess cult or something, yeah? And so that's why they call them Venus, these figurines. What makes this so special is again the age. So far, if I remember right, and this I remember from my younger years when I was at university, I knew the oldest figurine was the Venus from Willendorf, which is in Austria, and that is dated, was it 16,000 years or so? And that was also already really old. And when I was younger, that was the thing where you say, look, this is the oldest ever. But now, and this was just discovered in the last years. This is brand new stuff. This was just discovered in the last years, but this Venus is 40,000 years old. Now, this is interesting in so many ways, because it also shows a continuity from this age, 40,000 years old, to the age where the Venus from Willendorf was made. And in between there's something like over 20,000 years, 30,000 years or so. That's amazing. And you have this continuity over all these thousands of years. People were, living in this, how to say, in a sort of same cultural shape, yeah? There's nothing new, no religions and stuff, but it's these Venuses that we see. And what do we see here? Of course, I mean, the first thing that jumps in our eyes is these huge breasts, huge breasts, and also the detail and the oversize of the genitals here. That's interesting. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to our mind. And indeed, one of the archaeologists that was presenting this stuff, he made a little joke and he said Stone Age porn. But it's not porn. You know, I don't wanna. Maybe he was just making a joke, so I don't want to put his words on away now or something. Yeah? But I guess that many of us, the first time you see this is you start giggling. Oh, you know, the porn. But this is a different quality, because what jumps in our mind, that these Venus figurines, this one as well as the Venus from Willendorf, as well as the Venus figurines and the temples of Malta, for example. Malta is a totally different thing. But what is always in common, these Venuses, they don't have a face. Very often they don't even have a head. Sometimes they have a head but no face. Why is that? Because the face of a human being, this is what gives us this individuality. If I talk of a human being, of a certain human being, for example, a woman that I might feel attracted to, then it's also her face. That makes her an individual. But these Venuses, they don't have a head or no face. So here it's just a principle. It's not a certain woman that was made by the artist, and he's I love her genitals, very attractive. That's why he was doing that like that. No, because these Venuses have not a head. By the way, what we see here on top, this little piece there, this is not a head. This is a little ring where you can put a thread through, so you can carry it as a necklace or something. That's what it is. It's just a little ring. We cannot see if we would turn, we would look through the hole there. So what we have got here has not so much to do with erotic or stuff. What we see here is the female principle that was honored. So we see just fertility. That's the word. Fertility. That's what counts. And what makes this thing amazing is that the people who are making this, they already had a connection or could make a mental connection between sexuality, and of course this is spicy in our life, you know. But they could make a connection between sexuality and fertility. That's exactly it, yeah. And that's a big difference to animal life, because I mean we are taught so far. We are taught, hey, in those days they were not really human beings. You know, at least not in not here in Europe. I mean, it's the out of Africa theory states that around this time people just came to Europe, yeah? And so we're always told that people in those days were very primitive. They were not really human, half animal, half ape or something. Yeah? But what we see here is this is already, how can I say it? Because I try to avoid the term religion. I try to avoid it. Now I mentioned it, I failed, so, but I try to avoid it because religion is something different. That's a narrative. Religion, a narrative with gods and stuff, and this comes later. And I told you, out of my eyes, I see the birth of religion in this time of the Bronze Age, where the Nebra sky disk comes around. I told you in the episode of the Nebra sky disk that for me this tells the story of how all of a sudden religion is coming. In this age, it's not religion. There's no priesthood. There's nothing that you have to sacrifice for. There's no narrative. It's just female principle. But it's already a certain spiritual understanding, a certain understanding that you have life and death, and you have the mystery of birth, and you have the ecstasy of sexuality. Maybe that comes together also in rituals, I don't know, but that there is a connection, you know? This shows that there's a certain consciousness to understand these mechanisms, and this is what this proves to me, that they had this already 40,000 years ago. We're talking about human beings, spiritual beings there. Now, what we in the same cave, and it's not only this stuff. I told you it's the same cave where we had the flutes from. We have this stuff, and we also have this. Now these are two penises, phallus. This is a phallus symbol. So this is also from the same time. This I would say has the same energy like this goddess. It's just the principle of fertility that was honored. That was pre-religion. It was just fertility. It was life, you know. It was life and death, and you get born and stuff like that. So this is interesting that this is also made from mammoth ivory, and yeah, 40,000 years old. Fine pieces of art from the Hohlefels in the Schwabian Alb. Now the next thing. We're still in the Swabian Alp, and now we come to a new cave. This cave is called the Hohlensteinhöhle. This one, the hollow stone cave. And there we found this one. In German, this artifact is called the Löwenmensch, the lion man, because it looks like a lion. Other people say maybe it's another animal. Other people make the suggestion that this is a bear, so it's a bear man. I mean, we don't know it. Anyway, all of these things, they don't come with a description, you know. I mean, this is archaeology. It doesn't come with a description where the stuff is explained. So, I mean, you have the same eyes like I do, so look at it. I mean, what do you see? Well, I go with the lion man. But make it a bear man, I don't care. What is important there is, or let me say it in a different way. The first thing I saw this found, this was irritating me. What's coming there now? You know, a lion man. Because I told you that for me, these people, they did not live in religion narratives. They lived very close with nature and were in tune with nature and with your inner nature, with your body, as well as the outer nature, and maybe already the rhythms of the seasons. Who knows? But that's the way I see it. And all of a sudden there comes this. Now, this is a lion man. This is not. There's no lion man in nature, isn't it? So this was irritating me. What do we have here? Is that already some religious stuff? Is that an idol that people worshipped? But actually, the archaeological situation doesn't point in that direction. I mean, with this figurine was in the same situation like we found the flutes. So it was nothing shows that this was on a special place and that was worshipped there. But first, that's the impression that you get. This might be some sort of deity. But then it was working in me, and I thought, but what is this? This is not religion. You know, there's something different here. And then I understood. I mean, this is my understanding. Of course, you can evaluate that on a different point. As I told you, this comes with no description. You know, we're free. We have a discussion here. We are on a process here. This is new stuff in our mind. So we just lay it out there, and I give my impression, what I think, and what this showed me. All of a sudden, it came to my mind. No, this is not an idol, but this shows, or this points towards shamanism. That's it. You know what a shaman is? Well, the term comes from somewhere far east in Eurasia, but you have terms like that in different cultures. Call it medicine man, or whatever. Yeah? And what the shaman did, the shaman is always connected with the animal life. I mean, if you have pictures of shamans, the earliest pictures that we have, they have a mask on of a wolf, or they have the horns of a deer or something. You know, it's always the skin of a snake, whatever. You know, it's for the shaman. You want to dive into the animal worlds, into this nature soul. It has very often it comes together with the consummation of certain psychoactive drugs, like the American continent is full of it, but also in Eurasia there's all sorts of mushrooms and certain roots and stuff like that. So it comes together for shamanism with the digestion of certain psychoactive herbs or whatever, and then you dive into this animalistic relativity or reality, so to say. It's a shamanic journey, and this is what the shaman always shows. Then he shows these connected with these Krafttiere, with these power animals, and in those days, and this is another point how old this is. In those days, we had lions here in Middle Europe. These were called cave lions. So when they were not lions like the ones in Africa nowadays, of course, but they were lion-type animals living at the same time as human beings. So for human beings, a lion is a powerful animal. And of course, for the shaman, you try to make connection with this animal, make connection with this animalistic soul. I mean, we could talk all the time about this concept of shamans here. It's very interesting, indeed. But now we're in archaeology, and this is what I see in there. I don't see an idol that was worshipped. I doubt that totally. What I see there is, hey, these people already were also in this shamanistic way of life. They had a medicine man or something like that. Which is, again, another point to... these people were spiritual people. They were no apes, you know, or half-apes. Like, oh, no, these guys were intelligent. They had the possibility to create certain cultural phenomena like shamanism, like discovering fertility and things like that. That's what this is pointing to. Very interesting figure. And then much later on, again, check this timeline. This is unbelievable. 40,000 years old. This is somewhere over there. They got the timeline. We're all the way in here somewhere in this region. We've got the civilizations, the ancient civilizations that we learned in school about, Egypt, Mesopotamia and stuff. Now this reminds me of some of the deity figures that we have in these cultures. Like in Egypt, on the walls, on the paintings of the walls, you see this all the time. It's human bodies, but then with a head of an animal, of a bird or whatever. And then they are deities, part of a bigger narrative, of a bigger story. But this is shamanism, this is a different thing. But it just shows also how much later how religion, how it grew out of this world, out of this shamanistic thinking. And all of a sudden stuff like this becomes a deity. But in that day, what I say is shamanism. So human being has a connection, man has a connection to the animal life. It's not separated, you know, you're one with it. very interesting find. You can find it. It's called the Löwenmensch. Löwen is lion. Löwenmensch. I don't know how you can find this in English media, because as I told you, this is even in Germany. This is not so widely appreciated so far. This is new research, so you have to find for this stuff. This is not secret archaeology either. This is not secret archaeology. I know this is a big thing, secret archaeology, and oh yeah, hot stuff. You know, there's this is the phenomena that when finds are hidden from archaeologists. Archaeologists are hiding certain finds if they don't support their agenda or their narrative. But these are not examples for that. All these finds are exhibited. You can watch them in museums. Indeed, in some of these places where they found them, they even built small local museums, or, well, theme park goes too much, but a little archaeological park where for children, where you can find an approach to this phenomena. So the archaeologists want you to come. It's not hidden. You can find all of this. You can find all the information, but it's not very commonly known. This is something new. That's why I'm so happy to present this to an international audience, because I know even here in Germany this has not reached our mind yet, and of course if even not in Germany we are already on this, in the international, this is unknown, this stuff. But then again, this is our common heritage. You know? When I sit here now as a German, I mean, I cannot claim this is my German stuff. You know, it was found on the soil, but obviously 40,000 years ago. You know, this is our common heritage. No matter if you sit now in America or in Australia or wherever, you know, this is common heritage. But it's old stuff. You know, inspiring stuff. This is our common heritage, and this is for all of us inspiring. Because, you know, I was taught, or for many generations we were taught, that in the pre-ancient times, in prehistory, our forefathers, they lived a primitive way of living. That's what we are told since a long time. It started out with the Romans, that were when they were talking about Germanic people. I mean, it was their war propaganda. They said these others, they're all primitives. And but also in our times, in 19th, 20th century worldview, the man at that time was primitive. He was something like, yeah, the caveman. But that's just not true. I mean, some of these books, they said at that time, 40,000 years ago. Now, this is the old teachings that I tell you now. At that time, people were gatherers and hunters at a maximum, because some people in some books it's even said they were not even hunterers, gatherers and hunters, but they were carrion eaters. Now you know what that means, a carrion eater. So if you call human beings a carrion eater, I mean that's you can't get much lower, you know. It's in the entire food chain. I mean, there's gatherers, there's animals eating grass, there's other hunters. But you as human beings, you are the lowest of the entire food chain, because all you can get to is what's left over, what's carrion. I mean, this doesn't draw a picture of a dignified man. And that's exactly what this new stuff showing, that hey, we can push the timeline much older, and what always we find human beings. This was not any carrion eaters, you know, like the living an ugly life on the edge of life. I mean, come on, this is not true. And this stuff is true. It shows us how old it is. And I mean, many of these theories that we learn in school, like also the out of Africa theory, how can we support that anymore? I mean, the out of Africa theory, in a nutshell, it states that that in Africa, apes transformed somehow to human beings. And there's a strange narrative, but anyway, somehow apes turned to human beings, and they lived there for a while and developed, and then they started spreading all over the world. This is the out of Africa theory. So it states that the man origins in Africa. But I mean, archaeology points to towards something else, doesn't it? I mean, these things are 40,000 years old. So this just matches the time that the out of Africa theorists say that people came from Africa to Europe. So they came to Europe and instantly this is what followed. It just fits in. But what happens if we push the timeline even much further back? 40,000 years, you still might, with a lot of goodwill, you still might hold on to your out of Africa theory, even if this pointing already towards something else. But you might. But I tell you, we can push human existence much further back, and this brings us to the next astounding artifacts, also from Germany. But we leave the Swabian Alp now, and we go now to a region in Germany called Niedersachsen, Lower Saxonia, and there we find these artifacts here. These are the spares from Schöningen. These are spares, and it's amazing. It's an amazing site where you can find these things. It's a big area of coal mining. You know this coal mining. It's a huge area, one big hole. You know where these big machines are eating up the earth. I mean, it's amazing. You know, coal mining. And of course, you find old stuff there. And on this place, where this huge area that it's all mined, you know, it's all eaten up. And they have this one little piece of land that is still standing there. It looks amazingly little compared to the other stuff, but it's actually a few football fields, so it's quite some land there. And it's exactly on this part that was left over. They found these spares. So I mean, you just might wonder what was lost when all the other soil was eaten away, but in this part they left over and they found this stuff, and these spares, and also because you're in coal mining, you know, you already have geological clues about where in the timeline you dig in, and when these spares when they first appeared, and they come together with thousands of other artifacts. I mean, there's many of flintstones and other traces of human beings and settlement there, but this is the highlight, these spares. But this is not some accidental founds. You know, it's a big site, and first when they dated the stuff, and this was just found in the 90s also. This entire Schöningen stuff. This is also, in terms of archaeology, this is brand new. It's hot stuff in the 90s. So first when they dated it, they said this stuff is 400,000 years. 400,000 years. Now, they dated it back a little bit, got a little bit more conservative, and now officially. And again, this is not my interpretation. I mean, this is science. You know, this comes all from universities, and it's all exposed there, and you can see it. Now they say the stuff is between 300 and 340,000 years old. Now, grab this time. I mean, I showed you when we're in the Aurignacian, we're so much older than our common archaeological worldview is Egypt and stuff. This stuff is so much older, but now these spares, they're much older. Now we are 300,000 years back, you know. That's amazing. And now let's have a look at these spares. Because you might say, well, a spare, well, what is that? You know, you find a stick and you throw it, yeah, you might sharpen it up a little bit, there's your spare. No, it's not like that. These are examples of fine handcraft. These spares are already perfect. They are already the perfect spare. They are not just a stick. Yeah? It starts with the material, and they are made from young spruces, which seems to have the best material. That's already something. Which material do you have? Then how do you work with the material? These spares, they have the perfect weight. They are not. They don't have the same weight at the whole spare, but it's the front, the third part, which needs to have the most weight, so the spear has a perfect curve. All this was already there. This is sophisticated stuff. This is handwork, and if you have handwork, I mean, this proves again, then you need to have tools. So you have people who make tools. You have people who make the spear. There has to have been some sort of communication, how you teach these handcrafts. Also, when I was young, I was still learning. These people didn't speak. They were only like going with something like that, yeah. But no communication. But obviously, I mean, these people were working together. They were living together. From father to son, you show your son how to do this, where to get the right wood, when to cut the wood. Do you maybe have connection with the moon and at what part of the season? When do you cut the wood to get the perfect spear? All this stuff, you know, and this proves that there's 300,000 years ago, there was also already human beings living here. Human beings, no apes. No apes is doing something like that. Of course, we know apes can already have used something as a tool. You wanna crack your nut open, you take this and bang. This can do an animal as well. But this needs something, you know, some planning ahead. You have to work on this. And it shows a tradition. You communicate this. You teach it to your children, all that. Wow, in that age. Now that's amazing. I mean, and now this does not leave any room for something like the out of Africa theory, does it? Because I mean, who was then doing these things? Or you would say, okay, you might say, modern man maybe comes out of Africa. But then obviously there was other people living there before, here in Europe. So what happened with them? And this is also the narrative that you don't want to hear today, that you know, by migration that you might push some people away or something like this. So this is also not officially. Officially they say there are no other human beings than the ones that came out of Africa. But I mean, who made this then? We have to refigure about this. You know, our entire history line of human beings seems to be messed up. You know, this points to another direction. But hey, still, we're not through. The next thing is maybe even more spectacular, but maybe it's for other people it's not so relevant. The next piece is this one here. Now, what we have here is a piece of bone. And what makes this significant is these gravures that we have here, these lines. These are gravured into the bone. So, and especially these gravures that we have here in front. This is where experts, archaeologists say, and I'm totally on this also, this is not by accident. Of course, you can have gravures on a piece of bone if you work with it. You know, if you have always the same, you use it as a tool. You know, okay, you get maybe gravures in, but these here, this is not accidental. I mean, this is on purpose. This is a sort of a picture, a sort of a graphic image. And I tell you. Well, first, let's come to the age. This stuff, by the way, it's from Bilzingsleben. Now, that's a nice one to remember. Bilzingsleben. It's a small town in Thuringia in eastern Germany or central Germany. And there they found, on this site in Bilzingsleben, 140,000 artifacts of flintstone. But that's what we're not going to talk about. We look only at this piece. And of course they found a few of these bones and now Bilzingsleben is probably the eldest graphic image that we have in human history. It's that stuff. I mean, no, it doesn't come very spectacular if you compare it with this beautiful mammoth stuff. I know. But this is the oldest and the oldest impression, a graphic impression of a human thought. I know the German Wikipedia, the German wiki is really They are shaking. How can we? What words can we use for this stuff? Yeah? And it's the Wikipedia that in Germany. I have it here in German, and I try to explain it in English or translate it. It says these are probably the first graphic impressions of a human thought. Of a human thought. That's what it says here in Wikipedia. Is human. Because they know no ape is doing things like this. But this is 400,000 years old, found in Germany. So 400,000 years ago we had human beings here, and this is the first thing that something was in your mind, and then you transform it into a graphic. We don't know what it is. It could be just some measurement, you know, like every 10 tools that you were producing, you make one like this or something. It could be something like that. I'm not saying this is art. This is a human thought that is has a graphic transformation there. We don't know what exactly, but I mean, this is interesting. 400,000 years ago. I mean, now we totally smashed all this modern theories of modern man and how he came there. Now, the next thing is again in this Aurignacian, so it's about 40,000 years old, again found in one of these caves. We go back to the caves of the Swabian Alp, but I don't want to go out of the show without showing you this one. It's this was found in the Geisenklösterle cave. It's so funny to tell these names to you, because I understand the names, and it's also, you know, they're in Swabia, they have also their own little southern Western German tongue. Yeah, it sounds funny in my ears if I say these things. The Geisenklösterle, really. It's cute, not funny, cute, because I like this. I have great honor for this region, you know. And in the Geisenklösterle Höhle, they found this thing here. And this is called the Edoland of the Geisenklösterle. It's also made from mammoth ivory, and it's a plate. We see the one side, and this is the back side of the same piece. And this is called the Edoland because it's a human figure. And what's so curious here is the position of this human figure, the pose that this man is making. Yeah? And it's called the Edoland because it's already the archaeological filter. This people adored this, or this man is in a position adoring something else or something. Yeah? But what's really curious is that this is 40,000 years ago. But we see the same pose. Man in the same pose. Again, we see this in art in Egypt and in Mesopotamia, the same stuff. Interesting, yeah. Where did it come from? Why the man did pose in such a way, we don't know. But what is also interesting, and I'm not an expert on that, I'm only pointing to this because I told you this is new archaeology, this is new science, and there's a few researchers. Of course, worldwide, a few researchers that find new ways of interpreting finds like that. And the idea is that you look at how is such a figure composed, how is a picture composed. This goes also in the interpretation of cave paintings of Stone Age, where you see only a mess of animals, but there's other people. They are trained in finding out how a picture is composed. They have more an approach of an artist or an art historian or something like that. So we're talking about certain proportions from the legs to the height where you have your belt, proportions from belt to head, and so on. So people who try to decode ancient pictures in that way, I mean, this opens up a totally new field. But there, in this science, in this understanding of pictures, of graphics in that way, we are only like children so far. Yeah. I mean, these proportions in pictures then can again reflect something totally different. They can reflect a certain star constellation, for example, as above, as so below. similar approaches we have also on the Nebra sky disk. And I was only pointing to it because I'm not an expert on that. But I see, hey, there's some guys doing really, really interesting work. Let's see what they come up with in the next few years. And I tell you, we will hear interesting interpretations of pictures like this. Same goes to if you analyze entire temples, like in Malta, and you analyze the blueprints. Everything has proportions are mirroring something. We're talking also about something like the golden ratio and stuff like that. Golden ratio, also it's a famous concept in arts, but it's also a concept that comes directly out of nature. Like the Fibonacci numbers, this little bit math here, the Fibonacci numbers coming from this Italian mathematician, they create a line that is the theoretical line of spirals. You see this in nature everywhere. In sunflowers, for example. This is Fibonacci, the golden ratio and stuff like this. These are natural concepts, and they might also be in these pictures there. So some of us, maybe we see only a man and interesting and this pose, but there might be even much more in this that we still don't know. Same goes with this backside, also very interesting. These little dots here. I mean, you look at it and see it's just a piece of old bone. But I tell you, this might be also a hot stuff. We see these dots there. They are little holes, not holes, but little imprints, so to say. And there's 4 lines, so to say. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you count the dots, it's a little bit difficult, but if you count it, you get 13 dots. 12, 13, that's not obvious. But now, 1, 2, 3, 13 up. Does that ring a bell in you? Maybe it should. 4 times 13? That's 52. That's the number of weeks in a year. Is that by accident? Wow! Does that come by accident? Or are we witnessing here something like a proto-calendar 50,000 years ago that is already combining lunar phases with solar phases? Because a week is it's waxing and waning. This is lunar. We have 4 different lunar seasons within one full moon. Waxing, waning, and stuff. So, but then if we get to the 52, we get to the year, which is defined by the sun. So this already looks like a proto-calendar. And I told you again, and at this point I can only tell you, if you have not seen it yet, check out the episode that I did on the Nebra sky disk. There I also mention the tradition of human beings getting in tune with the sky rhythm, with the sun rhythm. And I was also in this episode, I was also mentioning the solar observatory of Gozek. And it's great that I mention it here as well, because it's another really archaeological highlight coming from Germany. It's the oldest sun observatory of the world. What was it, 8,000 years old? So somehow in our land here, it was a old tradition to get this calendar to measure time. And I told you that for me there seems to be a connection between time and rulership, and calendars and rulership. And I don't dig in this now because I watch the other stuff. But hey, maybe we have got some 40,000-year-old tradition concerning this. Ain't that interesting? Yeah, one more thing we have, which is even much more older, and it's this jaw here. Now, this jaw is the kiefer from Mauer, as they say. Mauer is it's again in Swabia in the southwest, and Mauer is a little village, and this is the kiefer is the jaw. And this was already found in 19th century. In 19th century, and when when the guy who found it, he was a worker. I told you, Swabian Alp is geologically very interesting. So you get some interesting materials out, charcoal and then not coal now, kalk. Well, anyway, you get certain materials out of the country, mining that you need then again for building roads and stuff. So already for what I want to say is there's a long tradition of mining there and of taking stones out of this region, and this was found in the 19th century by a worker. And they already knew that they were digging in old layers of the earth, because you can see it, much layers up, and they are down there digging. And so he found the jaw in there. He knew that this is old. First thing he did, he ran into the next village, into the Wirtshaus, the local saloon, so to say, and went in there. And he said, I found Adam. I found Adam, the first man. Now this is just a cultural projection. That's why I'm telling this. At those times, people were straight Catholic Christians, and you found old stuff. Oldest man, you called Adam. That's the way he understood it. Of course, it was a major found, and a few days later, there came the professor from nearby Heidelberg. That's right. I'm talking. Did I say that this is against Swabian Alp? That's wrong. Yeah, this is Mauer. This is not Swabian Alp, but also southwest Germany. But hey, it's near Heidelberg. Okay. Yeah. And so the professor comes and then he puts on. He's not talking of Adam because he's coming from another culture. He's coming from this new scientific culture, and he then tries to get it fixed somewhere in the timeline. And I tell you, if I look at all these findings and jaws like this, I wonder if this entire scientific field of anthropology is just a total mess. That's actually what I think. It's a mess. Sorry to say to all those anthropologists out there, but out of my point of view, the entire field of anthropology is only existing as a support for Darwin's theory. That's the only reason why we have anthropology. Darwin says that there's this evolution, that man developed out of ape. Apes developed into man. I mean, that's key of Darwinism, yeah. That's the key. And to prove that, there was founded this, so to say, a sub-science that is only trying to find artifacts that can prove this, that ape turned to man. And now for over 100 years, they are already digging and showing us stuff, but still they didn't find the missing link so far, because there is no missing link. Because what I show you, or what I tell you is, hey, come on, human life is much older. So there is no missing link. There is no half man, half ape type. This is not what we have. We have only man. Now, but when this guy from the anthropologists, the archeologists, 19th century, when he came there, of course he did not say this is a human jaw, because it does not fit in. They knew, oh, this is a geological layer, this is 500,000 years old. There cannot be a man or Adam's jaw in there. It's not possible. So of course, he created a new subtype. And so this entire human family tree that we see in anthropology, these different types, there's the Homo pekinensis and Heidelbergensis and all this, for me, I deeply doubt it. I deeply doubt it. But because for me, I have the impression that all these different types of men, they need them to get the narrative of ape transforming into man. You have to find something in between. So you find a jaw like this, you start a new type. This is half ape. Now, I mean, Is that really, does that make sense? Let's look at human beings now. I mean, we live in an earth, we have the internet, we can check out all different cultures, and let's just compare. And I'm taking two extremes here to make it obvious. Let's just compare. Let's say we take a man from the Pygmies, you know, the small bushmen in the Kalahari in Africa, small people, you know, adult people, not bigger than this, small people, and they have this strange voice and language and stuff. So if you compare these people, you take a skull from this one guy and compare it to, let's say, some of these sumo ringers that they have in Japan. You know, they have some guys over 2 meters tall and a head like a skull like this and huge bodies. Now, if you compare it, if you compare the skull, and let's remember, these anthropologists, they don't find complete skeletons and complete skulls. Most of the time, it's only a fragment of the skull. This, to find a complete jaw, is already sensational. That's why I showed you. This is already sensational. Oh, a complete jaw, 500,000 years old. That's very rare. Usually, you have only a fragment of some part, you know, some bone somewhere, and then they say. And now, if you would have this methodology, and you compare the skull of a pygmy with the skull of some Mongolian sumo ringer, you can say these are totally different beings. You know, you look at the skull, that's something totally different than this. That's the way they were doing science. I mean, this is, but nothing points to that direction, because nowadays we know, of course, between a pygmy man, a bushman from the Kalahari Desert, and some guy in the Japanese sumo league, they are both human beings. They can communicate with each other. Of course, they have different language, they have different culture, but they can communicate. And they already, some things they don't even have to learn, because some things in communication are absolutely the same. Like they all understand a smile, or they all understand, you know, a gesture like this. They are human beings. They can even breed with each other. They could have children. I mean, not the two men, but you know, this is human beings. This is the same. And in 19th century, we have this anthropology and this Darwinism and also these ideas that they had of different races and stuff. This doesn't fit. You know, this is 19th century mentality. And it's also science full of hoaxes. I mean, remember the Piltdown man? And I'm not going to tell you the whole story now, but just look it up if you don't know. The Piltdown man. I mean, these guys were hoaxing all the time to try to make science support a narrative that is coming out of an ideological agenda. It's the narrative of Charles Darwin. And because I was already talking about races and these strange concepts that's coming out of this era, we should not forget that the book that Charles Darwin wrote, it was not only I have the whole title here. It's not only called "On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection." I mean, that's what we learn in school. That's what it's all about, Darwinism. About the origin of species and natural selection. That's what we learn. That's what we think is Darwinism. But the complete title of the book, it goes on. It says, the complete title now, "On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life." Now this is what the whole story is. The preservation of races. So it's already bringing this separation into things, different races, and some are human beings, some maybe not. I mean, of course, nowadays we're all politically correct, and yeah, we're all human beings on Earth. But this concept of the 19th century is separating, because it puts one race over others. It says they are not all on the same development, so to say. Yeah? So these are concepts that are they don't fit in anymore. And out of this mentality, out of this ideology, came out anthropology. And so they say, if you find a skull like this, I mean, every child will say, hey, that looks human, you know, look at the teeth. I mean, this is not, obviously this is not from a wolf. That looks human, but now they say no, this is then another subtype. I don't know now exactly what this is called, if it's Heidelbergensis, because I threw all this stuff out of my mind. I don't want to learn it anymore. All these definitions. Yeah, this is the Heidelbergensis, and this is Homo erectus, and this is Pekinensis. I throw it out. What I see is human beings. It's human history, a common heritage, and of course we have a cultural diversity. No way. I mean, this is amazing, yeah. And I'm not ringing the bell here for the ones that are making all the same. No. We have diversity, but we have human beings, and we have an old history, yeah. And I don't know how you feel about this stuff, but for me this is feeling good. To know that I live in an old country, in an old land, that's doing me good. But before I get to my final, I'm looking at one more thing. At this picture jumps into your eye. Do you get it? Do you see it on the first sight? Look at the quality of the teeth. That's amazing, also. Huh? See this? All good teeth. No caries, no tooth decay, nothing. Huh? That's also interesting, because many people say that has to do with the diet. Nowadays, also if you look at the last 2,000-3,000 years in archaeology, if you find a human jaw, most of the time the teeth are crap. The older you get, the more you have decay there. And it's all over the world. It's all over in different cultures. But at that time, not. It's interesting. Because maybe at that time they had a total different diet. At that time we didn't have sugar, of course. At that time we didn't have grain, wheat and corn. This was all not there yet. Now, I don't know what the diet was of this man or woman, of this human being. I don't know. But it jumps really in the eye that obviously this was a healthy being. And maybe that's also something that we can think about. Yeah, but now my final words on this. I don't know how you feel it. Maybe for you it's only this is all old bones and don't give anything about it. Maybe, but for me this is quite inspiring, because it shows that we have this long tradition, that we have forefathers. Now I like this term forefathers. In English you say forefathers, so it's the father. But in German it's a little bit different. In German the term is Vorfahren. Not forefather, but Vorfahren. And what does that mean? Fahren is the same root like in the English word seafaring or something like that. You see? So it's something dynamic. Our forefathers, our Vorfahren in German, that does not say that they were directly my father. But they were the ones that were roaming in this country before our days. So all these people that were roaming here, that were living here in this country, breathing the same air, drinking the same water, so to say, these are our Vorfahrens, people that were roaming here. And now we see that this is a long line. This goes long ago. We live in old land. This is a sacred land that we live in, And I don't know how it's this for you, but I gain a lot of self-confidence out of it. When I see that I'm bedded into a long line. It's like a necklace of pearls. There's so many pearls going back. So many. I cannot even get this in my mind. How long is 400,000 years? I know I can say the number, but I cannot really. I don't have a feeling of this distance. It sounds like pretty old. So such a long line is there. Like the great American troubadour Townes Van Zandt said it in his words. He said in one of his songs, he said, "Come from a long line, high, low, and in between." That's what it is. We come from a long line, and each one of us who is living today on Earth, and no matter where you come from and what color your skin is right now, we all have a long line of forefathers. And these were all people that were successfully living life. They were roaming around. They passed on life. They went through heavy times as well as great times. But they lived, you know, they lived. They laughed, they were crying, they had their dramas, they had their great times, they had their festivities together, they had their parties together, they were making music. I mean, that's what we learn today. Check it out. I mean, age old, we have the oldest instruments here. We have the oldest art here. We have the oldest, like this Venus statue, the oldest sort of spiritual consciousness of the rhythms of sex, birth, and life. All of these things we have there. We have the eldest tools, the eldest hunting weapons, like these spears. We have the proto-calendars here. I mean, this is, our forefathers were great people, weren't they? You know, we come from a long line of culture. This is old land, and this is not only Germany, of course. This is I'm talking of Europe, but in Germany in particular. I mean, what I showed you today is all coming from this small country, Germany. But this, what I say for Germany, is also for Europe. We have not big land mass. But on this small landmass, we have a long, this is old land. We have a cultural diversity here that is unparalleled anywhere in the world. We live on old land, and I'm not getting out of this, going into another extreme and saying, now see this, let's use this or instrumentalize this for some nationalistic, Germanic Übermensch or something. No, that's exactly not what I'm talking about. Because then we would fall from one extreme to the other, and that's useless. Because we had for so many times, for such long times, we have heard these narratives that your forefathers, they were dumb, they were running around with with some clubs and some furs on, while in other parts of the world they were already building pyramids and you know and you guys were just primitive. But that's not true. You know, that's propaganda that first came from Romans and we still hear it to nowadays. Now, of course, obviously that's wrong, but we should not get from one extreme to the other and say, now, hey, we are the crown of the world, and let's create an out of Europe theory or something. That would be useless in my sense. That's not the point that I want to make. What I want to show is that it gives you confidence if you know that you come from a long line, and that's for each one of us. And this line is much older than modern. In modern years, we heard of scientists, because they only tell you, or they want to tell you this narrative. Hey, you come out of an ape. The entire existence and life is just by accident. Some there was nothing, and out of accidents this nothing exploded, and hey, here's your existence. I mean, all these narratives, what they have in common is that they make life small. You know, they make man small. You're nothing special. You're just a product of some biochemistry, and in the end, it's a totally materialistic worldview. You're just a piece of shit living on a piece of shit, so to say. Sorry, my words, yeah, but that's the narrative that we've been confronted with for such a long time. And now I want to point to what we really find, and hey, that shows another picture that gives us back some dignity. And I tell you, I'm not falling into this, now we are better than those. This is common heritage. And also some people that are thinking in racial terms. Come on, just a little example. Every one of us has twice as much ancestors than your parents have. Like, I have double as much ancestors than my parents, because with my parents there's two lines. I double it. My children already have double as much ancestors than I do. Now, when we're dealing with 40,000 years, 300,000 years, 400,000 years. Now, math was never my strength, so I'm not gonna call out any number. But even for me and for my mind, I see there will be a lot of forefathers. I mean, my family tree must be amazing if I look at 400,000 years back. So Is there, where's the bloodline? Where's the blood purity, like some of the elites always have? It's not that way. I'm a mix of 400,000 years of thousands of generations, you know, and each generation is mixing again. That's what I am. This bloodline thinking, that's always been the ideology of the elite. You don't marry with somebody who's not in your caste, you know, you only marry between some families and stuff. This is not my thinking. I get my confidence that I know, wow, that I have so many forefathers, and they were all people that were facing life, and this is powerful. So I don't want to create out of this any ideology. Yeah? What I see is a common heritage. But what I also no more digging into is when out of some ideology, my country, Germany, Europe, and our forefathers are dismissed as some brutes, some primitives, because that's just not true. We come from a long line of life, of cultural development, and that's something that we can have confidence. Like in this pearl chain, you know, all these pearls were before, and now, in the here and now, it's us. You know, we are the center now. It's our pearl. We are the pearl now. Now we are roaming. Now we are the fathers, and we are doing things and living our life as good as we can with all our dramas and our great times, you know. And then we pass it on to all the pearls to come. And, you know, this is giving me, I'm getting confidence out of this. I'm not alone in this world. You know, I'm not accidentally thrown into here, and I don't know what I'm doing here, and facing all the madness of modern life. Yeah, I get confidence out of it because I know I come from a long line, and I know I will pass on that line, and from this I can get much more relaxed if with all this madness that is surrounding us, because I see this tradition, and this is much bigger than the individual, and this is much bigger than us humans. We cannot destroy this stuff. This is our continuity, this is our heritage, and it goes long back. And all the people who say that our forefathers were primitive, in the end, they are saying that human being is primitive. In the end, it's a science, and it's an attack against the dignity of human beings. But I hope I could present you now some stuff that is showing that we come from a long line, you know, and we can be proud of it. It feels good. You know, it's in us. Long tradition. And of course, the earth has always shaped. You know, the material is always shaping. I mean, Ice Age was coming and stuff. I don't know if people had a happy life. Those guys who were making these animals and stuff. But if I look at it, I guess they were having a free life. They were having arts. They were having music. They were having a spiritual life, a consciousness of some higher spiritual approach. They had all of this. They had all. That's what defines culture. That's what defines human nature. That's deeply human. And they had. Yeah, okay, maybe sometimes times were rough from nature, but I guess they were living in quality. They were living a happy life, having music together, singing, dancing. Because wherever there's music, there will be danced. You know, this goes also hand in hand. I mean, this is old stuff. Yeah, we come from a long line. I guess that's what I wanted to present to you. What's also, I've got a couple more pictures here. This is one of these little caves that I was told you. This is the Vogelherdhöhle, and it's really interesting because just this summer I've been there, because I was researching all this archaeological stuff the last few months, and it also hit me. Wow, how come that I don't know this? You know, and so I said I want to discover this, and I can tell you whenever you come to Germany, pay a visit to that. Or whenever you travel through the world, we don't always have to see the greatest shiny pyramids. I like that also. I've also been in Gizeh, and hey, wow, it's great stuff. But isn't that nice as well? I mean, just look at it. This is such a typical German European little landscape. It's a little landscape, you know. This is not spectacular mountain, but I mean, this is nice. It's got rivers. It's cute in some way, and just in this cave, woo, it leads you way back. So for me, it's also nice to go to these places. Just sit there, get some connection, you know, think about it, and wow, and you feel it. This is very nice. Yeah, and another thing that's the last now. It's so funny, yeah, because I told you I was researching this archaeological stuff, and archaeology was always one of my favorites for many years. What I did not know while I was also researching this, and the presentation that I gave you today, I guess half a year ago, I made it in German. What I did not know by that time is that there is now a big exhibition in Berlin, and it's called Archeology in Germany. And this is so interesting because it just proves that yeah, we're right on spot, because there is something new happening in archaeology. And right now, as I'm recording this, this exhibition is in Berlin. You can see it. It's from 21st September, which is also nice because it's the equinox, isn't it? They started on the equinox. From September until January, and I heard it's already until it's until February. I heard that. So, if you listen to this, maybe you have the possibility to get to Germany, to get to Berlin, to this exhibition, because now in this exhibition, all these archaeological highlights are under one roof. And I tell you, people, this is a once-in-a-life chance. It won't happen again anymore. Because all these precious artifacts, you know, they are so precious. Just the Nebra sky disk is so precious. I mean, it's the assurance is already 100 million euros or something, you know. And the museum in Halle, it's the greatest attraction. I mean, they don't give this stuff away very often, and they won't for the next decades. This is a very special exhibition in Berlin, archaeology in Germany, and it features, of course, the Nebra sky disk. It features these golden helmets that I was also presenting you. It features much of the stuff that I was showing you today, the flutes. There's some of the spares from Schöningen are at this expedition. Some of this little figurines of animals are in this expedition. This is a really special thing. So if you have the means and you have the time, don't miss that. It's once in a lifetime that you can see all these artifacts in one museum under one roof, and I haven't been there yet. I will go there definitely, maybe even next week. It doesn't matter here, and just get the inspiration out of these artifacts when they're all together. You know, I mean, in the same house, you look at this and you get inspired by that, and wow. And maybe we see this big red thread, this big continuity. Which again is yeah, one of the main subjects of our little show here. So that was just interesting. I mean, we were presenting this stuff, and just a few weeks later, there we go, and there's this big exhibition. That makes me really happy. So if anybody of you has the possibility, check this out. This will not come to your country. Probably you will never see the Nebra sky disk outside of Germany. I doubt it. And yeah, so maybe you have the time to hit to Berlin and have a look at yourself. As I told you, all this stuff has no description. The best is if you look at it in a direct way and check out what you are feeling. What is the story that's telling what are the artifacts telling you? What is your story with it? Yeah. So here you get your chance. Well, we already passed on, so I'm happy again that that you joined us in this episode. Stay tuned with our channel. Subscribe, spread our channel, support us. Hit the donation button. Support our work because we need it, and there's much more to come. Much more that we want to do. Big, interesting times that we live in, and in the sense of making a contribution to the world. In this sense, I'm presenting you this stuff, and I'm happy also that as a German I can present you this stuff and say, hey, come on, this is our contribution, you know, to this world heritage, to this big buffet of many nice stuff, and here, this is coming from us. Hey, take it as in the sense of love and respect to all you people out there, no matter where you hear this and where you watch it. Be blessed, life. So have a good time, and see you next time, man. Thank you.